Today on With the First Pick, it's Wednesday during the college football season, which means we're talking draft eligible players that caught our eye during week 2. Slates of games, and we have 4 new quarterbacks to get to, standout wide receiver and running back. We talked about one of these guys over the summer, and I'm excited to talk about him again a little bit here, and like we always do. We'll check in on the NFL rookie quarterbacks, or in this case, quarterback, and some other rookie non-QBs who got our undivided attention after a big week 1 in their NFL debut. I'm Ryan Wilson. That's former Titans GM Ran Carthon. This is episode 295. And Ran, there are 225 days to the 2026 NFL Draft. Pittsburgh, PA. How you doing, sir? Home from a week in Fort Lauderdale, back in Nashville.
Yeah, man. Back in good old Nash Vegas. Got up this morning with my wife and got us a good workout in. Got my you-know-what kit. So now I got to come deal with you.
Yeah. Listen, man, there's a lot of benefits to working out. One of them, it helps clear your mind for where the rest of the day holds, and the rest of the day holds me. So your trainer is doing the Lord's work. You didn't ask, but I'll tell you. I did my yoga this morning for similar reasons. Not because of you, because I got to deal with me for the rest of the day. So I got my yoga in. Me and my 14-year-old who describes himself as an indoor cat. I got him out there. So we go jogging every day. And I cannot stress the word jog enough, but I'm getting them out there. We're moving our bones a little bit. Like old timers.
Y'all out there
Meandering. That's right. We're going for a little stroll. It is a balmy 58 degrees here. So that's the kind of day you want to be strolling on for sure. Hey, by the way, just a quick programming note. Now the college and NFL seasons are officially underway. On Mondays, Rand and I are joined by our guy, CBS Sports NFL insider Jonathan Jones, for what we're calling Striker. Ran it back Mondays, and if you're watching, you can see this lovely graphic that we came up with, and I stress the word we. Hit the button, Striker. Quit playing Candy Crush.
I actually have the Wednesday one. But I'll start with the Wednesday one. I'll flip it back while I download the other one. You can.
Oh, you didn't download it. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and on Wednesdays, because we're two old timers that like talking about college kids and NFL guys, I'm calling it Young Fella Wednesdays. Ran, how you like that name?
No, I'm with it.
Yeah,
and I like the fact that you spelled it F-E-L-L-A.
Young Fellow Wisdom.
You didn't build corporate. Young Fellow.
And here's for our viewers. Here's the Monday.
And on Monday we're running it back. That's a play on. If you didn't know, that's Rand's play on Rand's name there. Ran it back Mondays with JJ. And the good thing about that is Rand obviously is our GM on the show. Nearly 2 decades of front office experience, and JJ is our NFL insider. And between the two of them, get all the answers to the biggest storylines from Sunday's action on Mondays during the season. On Wednesdays, Young Fellow Wednesdays, where we do what we do originally here. There you go. Now you got a striker. Where we talk about these young college players that you should be having on your radar if you don't already. And then, of course, like the rookies that you can't quit because you've been watching them for 2, 3, sometimes 4 years. Can't just let them go off to corporate America and not keep up with them, Rand. So what do you think about Ran It Back Mondays and Young Fellow Wednesdays here during the fall?
I'm here. I'm with it, man. I like it. I like the feel of it. And like you said, man, we can't be deadbeat scouts. And once we're done with the young fellas, just kick them out. No, we want to keep up with them. We want to help with their development to see where they are. So
that's right.
I'm looking forward to it, man. We're not deadbeats over here.
No, that's right. You send your son to St. Lawrence. You can't just have him not communicate with you, even though he chooses to do so. You got to check in with him and see how he's doing. I don't know where that came from. One last thing before we get going, Rand, talk about some of these quarterbacks from the college football weekend before we get to our guy, Cam Ward. Leave a 5-star review. And we have one that we're going to talk about today with one of these quarterbacks and Byrum Brown out of USF, Rand's favorite team after they beat Florida over the weekend. Leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and leave us the name of FBS or FCS draft eligible player. And we will 100% definitely get to that player on the show, hopefully sooner than later. And by that, I mean over we get the review. We'll do it in the next few weeks. If not on the Young Fellow Wednesday, we'll do it on a mailbag show. But anyway, all right, housekeeping out of the way. Let's get this party started. Before we get to Byrum Brown, USF quarterback, let's go to Tempe, Arizona, where I lived for a summer between my junior year and senior year of college. And let me just say, coming from the East Coast and going to live in Arizona, it's like being dropped on this planet if you lived on Venus for the first 18 years of your life. It was an experience, man. It was an eye-opener. Sam Leavitt, Mississippi State. is who they played. And I don't know. Let's start here. So over the summer, we talked about Sam Leavitt. You like Sam Leavitt. I was not quite as high on him as you. Our buddy Pete Prisco went to Arizona State, so he follows this team so closely. And he kept yelling at me over the summer that he thought Sam should be in the first round conversation. I wasn't quite ready to put him there yet, in part because he's young, the Michigan State transfer. But I wanted to see some development, a little less frenetic in the pocket, a little better decision making. And this game at Mississippi State felt like a huge step back. I found very few reasons to be excited about him, and it's only one game, and I'm not gonna say the kid can't play football anymore. Everyone has a bad game. But it wasn't until late in the game where he threw a 12-yard out on 3rd and 12 with a little bit of anticipation that I finally felt like he had a throw worth making a note about. The interceptions were not great. I don't think he trusts his arm, at least he plays that way, and he is so frenetic in the pocket that it's hard for him, it feels like, in watching him, for him to calm down and do the things that you need him to do to make an offense have some consistency. So I'll quit yapping and get your thoughts on it. But those were my takeaways from the Mississippi State game, which was not a good game for that offense.
No, I mean, it's been a struggle through 2 games, if you wanna be honest about it. I mean, we're talking about the, Mississippi State game. It's an SEC defense. He's seeing speed at a rate that he's never seen before, and that's at all levels of the defense. Like you mentioned, he was 10 of 22, only threw for 82 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks, and he only has 339 yards passing on the season with 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, and the team right now is 1-1. Like, walking away from it, excuse me, I'm wondering, did Cam Scatterbull make that much of a difference for this offense and allowed him to play a more, calm, poised game, knowing that at any moment he could turn around, hand it off, and the threat of Cam Scatterbull out of the backfield, how much that really made a difference for this offense, because you still have Jordan Tyson, still have
Right.
one of the better receivers in the nation right now, but the performance has left a lot to be desired. And like you said, I liked him a lot, coming out of the summer, and I'm looking at my list right now, actually had him at number 5 coming into the year with an arrow pointing up because I was excited about seeing him. But we got to let the rest of the season play out. Let's
Yep.
see if it gets hot. But right now, man, it's leaving something to be desired.
Yeah, no, I was talking to Scout last week, and that's his area. And he was talking about how excited he was to see Leavitt play. This was before the Mississippi State game. And also, he was excited to see another guy play who's also in his area, who we'll talk about in a little bit here. Another one of your guys who had a great weekend. But in terms of Sam Leavitt, I mean, I got a page full of notes. You got to get near the bottom where finally have something positive to say in terms of this game. Flashes out of structure playmaking ability, but needs to balance that with the frenetic way with which he plays. I thought his footwork it looked like someone who was so uncomfortable in the pocket, he just did not feel comfortable being there beyond the first read. So again, you talked about it. We can't overreact, but it is something that you make a note of, because if it continues, then we're having a completely different conversation in November than we are now. Now he can run athletically. He can do it all, and he's a tough dude. And again, I thought he needed a little bit more experience coming into this year, but I think your point about Cam Scatterbull is a good one, because now this means Jordan Tyson has to do even more. And he splashed. He had a good first week against Northern Arizona, but that's Northern Arizona.
Yeah, and then the other part too, man, like you were talking about, him rushing his footwork, and I would need to go back and kind of balance it off like back to back games, watching week 1 versus week 2. But like I said, the speed of the Mississippi State defense, and that's at all levels, and especially knowing that a defensive front has that type of speed that can close. And Mississippi State is known traditionally for having good defensive linemen, come out of there. And so that could be instance where you're like, oh crap, like these dudes are fast and they're getting on me quick. But that also leads you to think about what's going to happen when he gets to the next level,
Right.
because the game speeds up, those guys get even faster. And now is what we're seeing going to be a projection for when he does make it to the National Football League and the speed of the game picks up on him.
Yeah.
We'll,
And again,
we'll
right. It's a squinting situation. And I mentioned that because when we talk about Cam Ward later in the show, There was no squinting involved in that Broncos game. Now, he was only 12 of 28, but I was thinking about Cam Ward 12 months ago and where he is now, and then trying to overlay that on the quarterbacks we're talking about in this draft class. And if those guys, whoever you want to put in the slot, even Sam Leavitt, if he progresses like Cam Ward did over the next 365 days, he'll be fine, because Cam Ward has come a long way, and he was already pretty far down the road coming into the 2024 season. The issues with Cam at the time were a lot of hero ball and not playing in structure. I think he did a pretty good job at that, but I don't want to, spoil the plot in the Cam Ward conversation. But I was thinking about trying to put that on these players and rewind where we were with Cam 12 months ago, and trying to fast forward that with guys like Sam Leavitt and guys like Byrum Brown, who we're going to talk about here in a second. All right. So let's try to be as fair and honest with ourselves as we can based on the summer tape and 2 games in the season for Sam Leavitt. I had him as a 4th round pick coming into the season. He's a day 3 guy for me still.
Well, I mean, I liked him a little bit more than that. Obviously, like I said, I had him as my number 5 quarterback with an arrow pointing up. And could have saw him going as high as 3, if I'm being honest, just based off of what I saw off the summer tape. But like I said, for me, this is the point of why I do my evaluations the way I do. And I have the season before notes and a report. And then you come back to the next season and you watch games in the beginning, games in the middle, and games at the end. And you always go back and you watch the bowl game and see how the bowl game goes.
Yeah.
And so this is why you do it. And I'm not gonna get too far ahead of myself.
I know.
And put a stamp on him, for right now. But this Mississippi State game is one that's on the docket that counts as an early game view. And right now it's if I'm giving it a game grade, it was a marginal game grade.
I'm laughing because, you don't understand how the media works, sir. You need to have a knee-jerk reaction immediately, right away.
No, I don't.
And you're right. And it was like that? Your buddy Rick Spielman, because Rick used to say, "Can we just let the kids play?" It is literally September 10th. This game happened, September 6th, September
Listen,
7th.
I'll have an opinion, and I'll say how based off of that one game, but this is a marathon. It's not a sprint.
That's right. All right. So I'm hearing Rand say that undraftable grade for Sam Leavitt. Okay, next up. I'm kidding. He didn't say that. He's an abundance of caution, as we like to say. And I think that's a good way to think about it. All right. But I'll say whatever you want me to say. I'm not afraid. All right, Sam, we need to see you play better. I think that's the bottom line. A lot of reasons for optimism coming into the season. You got to put it together. And again, to your point, Rand, if Cam Scadaboo was the reason, if you can overcome that, that's another feather in your cap as we go through this draft process. All right. Producer Stryker, let's see this 5-star review from our guy Foot from the MAC. Why wasn't anyone talking about how USF's, South Florida's quarterback, abused Boise State's defense in week 1? Is it because they played early? Well, thank you, Mac, for that question. The follow-up will be, we are now talking about Byrum Brown, who we actually touched on last season early in the year. And there he is. If you're watching, you can see his stats versus Boise State then against 13th Florida. So USF beat 2 ranked teams. Boise was 25 at the time, and then Florida was 13 last Saturday. And shout out to Byrum Brown. He's from North Carolina, went to Roseville High School in Raleigh. My sister lives right down the road from there. That's where old Ryan Wilson grew up. I'm sure you guys already knew that. But tell me what you think about this. I think that Byrum Brown might be the second best running back among quarterbacks after Lenore Sellers. And it might be closer than we're thinking. Like when I wrote down my notes in terms of how he runs the ball, and you see, forget about safeties bouncing off of him in the end zone. We're talking about second level guys. I wrote down Marshawn Lynch in terms of how he's beast moded down the street. Folks did not want any part of him once he decided to pull the ball down and run. And they had some designs runs for him as well. Passing the ball, I think there's a lot of room for improvement. Now, he's a senior. He played 5 games last season. I think he got hurt, had a leg injury, came back and took 2 snaps in that final bowl game in the Hawaii Bowl. But when we talked about him early last year, it was sort of the same things. I want to see more progress as a passer, trying to get through his reads a little better. And he'll come off his first read. One of the things I always point to when we talk about quality of misses, are you willing to throw with anticipation? Because if you're not, then that has to be a different sort of offense you're in as well. What do you think of Byrum Brown, if you can set aside for the fact that he put a whooping on your Gators?
I think in the true definition, and I'm glad you said this when we were talking about the previous player, and you used your term, the squint. I think this is a true definition of a squint player, right? Because like you talked about, the running ability is what it is. You said people are scared to tackle him. You should be. He's 6'3", he's 230 plus pounds, and building up a full head of steam. Yeah, you're gonna be scared to tackle it. And it was like my stepdad used to always tell me when I was a young runner in high school, "You're too big to try to juke people."
Yeah.
He was like, "Just run through them, and by the third quarter, they'll find a way to miss you."
That's-
And so, and that's the way he runs. But I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of passing. There are things you like about him. You like the arm strength, you like the ability to throw downfield. But like you said, throwing with anticipation, throwing with the consistency and the accuracy, like you want to see more. You want to see it more consistently, right? And so that's the part of his game where he's going to have to, get better. Um, he kind of reminds me a little bit. I think this guy that I'm going to compare him to, who's another USF quarterback, I think he was a little better passer, but he kind of reminds me a little bit of BJ Daniels,
Mm.
that played at USF back in the day, had a stint with Seattle and maybe a couple other teams. But I believe, if my memory serves me correct, BJ either was a day 3 pick or he was a undrafted guy, but he stuck around the league because he was smart. He had traits and intangibles, and I think Byrum Brown is there. So, for our 5-star review, I think the reason why you didn't hear anything about people talking about him is because he was playing a Boise State team and it's USF, if we're going to be honest about it. Right. I think outside of those two fan bases, I don't think people were exactly tuned in. But when he came on the national scene against, Florida in a primetime game, especially in Gainesville, and to go in there and lift his team to a victory and make plays when the team needed him to make plays, I mean, I think it caught everybody's attention, which is why we're talking about him now.
It may have been 2 years ago now, but USF took it to Alabama. I believe that game was in USF 2 years ago because I think it was Saban with Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe gotten benched in that game. I may be misremembering the fact, but I remember USF gave them a very hard time, and it took a lot for them to pull away Alabama down the stretch in that game. So USF, they're not rollovers. BJ Daniels was 7th-round pick, by the way, 2013 of the 49ers. So, yep, you got that one. But I wrote also, he's more Jalen Hurts than Kyler Murray is a runner, and by that I mean he ain't looking to run around people. To your stepdad's point, he'll run you over. Marshawn might have been an over-exaggeration, but some of the things he was doing to those Florida defenders, you don't want to put that on television. It was tough.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me started on that. I mean, if you look over my shoulder here, the Gator jersey's being replaced with a Keon Coleman jersey. And I'm saying that tongue in cheek, but it's really more so a nod for Keon and how he played this week.
What did Keon? Can you tell us what Keon wrote on our?
But I still have my Gator jersey.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, if you can, I don't know if you can really, you can
See the scribbles, but I can't read it.
You see the scribbles, but the scribbles says you should have taken me at 7. Is
And
what
Keon went at the top of the second or the bottom of the first?
he was picked 33, top of the second.
Okay, that's right.
By Buffalo. So
Got Buffalo.
shout out to you, Keon.
Yep.
Shout out to his agent Paul Daracell, and that whole crew. But keep doing what you're doing, Keon. Excited to see you play now.
Big game Sunday night, and an improbable victory for the Bills, and that they were down, 15 points with 3 minutes to go. One last thing I'll ask you about before we take a break here in terms of Byrum Brown. And look, just like every other one of these quarterbacks, and talk about Sam Levitt and the others, he can continue to ball out and get better and improve the things he needs to prove on. This isn't in any way, shape, or form to say that he can't play the next level. It's just based on the 2 games that we've talked about and saw here. I think I mentioned that he's a see-it-thrower type passer, and that's not going to fit every scheme. And that brought me back because I went back and watched Justin Fields' throws over the weekend against the Steelers. That was one of the best games Justin Fields has played. So shout out to Tanner Engelstad, I think his name is, the new OC. I don't know if you know him at all, but the game plan they had for him, because they put Justin in position to make the throws he's comfortable making. You're not asking him to throw a lot of deep outs with anticipation. He's throwing balls on runaway man beaters, on shallows and comebacks and deep curls, and he was dealing. and he obviously uses legs as well. So there's a way to win with athletic quarterbacks at the next level if they're not doing everything that Peyton Manning did, for example. It's just you have to be willing to make that fit. Are those conversations you're having throughout the draft process? Are the OC and the QB coach saying, well, we can get him to do what we want him to do in this system?
I think every coach, once they see traits, they feel like, oh, I can get it out of 'em. I think that's every coach at every position. But I think when it comes to the quarterback position, it's more tailored, if that makes sense. Because the game has changed. There was a time. I mean, shoot, let's be real. Lamar Jackson, you could come up with every excuse in the book, but Lamar Jackson was the 32nd pick in the draft because he didn't at that time fit the mold of where the league was going. But then now you see, and I don't want to even stir up this, but
Oh boy.
the big knock on Shador was he wasn't athletic enough. He couldn't run. And so you can kind of see where the game has evolved. And, everybody wants that dual threat quarterback and that quarterback that can keep a defense on his heels because they have the ability to use their legs. Now, when you have these defensive coordinators that you have in the league, the Robert Salas, the Vic Fangios, the Denard Wilsons, the Vance Josephs, these type of guys, they're going to eventually force you to stand there in the pocket and play quarterback. And then that's where you can separate. So I want to end it with saying this. It's okay. It's perfectly okay to be a good college quarterback and not be a pro quarterback. That's perfectly fine. It doesn't mean you stink, you suck, or anything like that. It's just not everybody's game translates to the NFL. And that is okay. And so if that's the case for any of these kids we're talking about, it's perfectly fine. They can still go into their respective universities' Hall of Fames as great players it just didn't work out in the NFL. Because there are a ton of guys who did not produce in college that became quality NFL players. It's just the way it works sometimes.
Yeah. Also, my guy, who I went to college with, I haven't mentioned this in a minute. I used to talk about it all the time. Mike Tomlin, I think still holds a touchdown record for receptions at William & Mary, and he went straight into coaching. I think it's worked out okay for old Mike T there. Same with Sean McDermott. He was William & Mary, played on that same team. He went straight into coaching. He worked with the great Jim Johnson as DC in Philly, and it worked out for him as well. Tanner Engstrand, by the way, I had to get his name right. I double checked. He came over with AG from Detroit. Excuse me. He'd been there forever. So reasons for optimism with the Jets, and obviously reasons for optimism with Byrum Brown if he can sort of follow that path. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about America's quarterback is what I'm crowning this young man. You were high on him over the summer. I liked him. I had some concerns, and he has been balling out first 2 weeks of the college football season. John Mateer, right after this break.
Only CBS Sports can bring you big time during the heart of Saturday afternoon. Such you got. It's big time.
It's big time. Big time is big time.
On CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
Here are the first words of my note for John Mateer. They played Illinois State in week 1. We talked about that a little bit last week. They played Michigan at home in Oklahoma in week 2. Here's what I wrote, Ran. Absolutely unafraid of anything on a football field. Man. So he's about 6'1", unofficial, and I was talking to this guy that said he's probably that size. I think the only offer he had was Washington State coming out. Sat behind Cam Ward there. Came over with OC Ben Arbuckle from Washington State over to Oklahoma. So they know each other very well. And we know he can throw it. We know he has sort of a funky sidearm delivery. He doesn't get the ball batted down any more often than anyone else. I talk about Byrum Brown as a runner. John Mateer might be a better runner. He ain't looking to run over people. He'll make you miss. And he's good in the pocket in terms of buying time with subtle pocket movements. He's not necessarily looking to run. Unafraid to throw the ball to any level of the field. He does have good touch on some deep balls. I thought he played himself into a top 33 conversation with what he did the last 2 weeks. I'm not going to put him in the first round just yet, but if you told me he ended up going in the first round, I would believe it. I'm going to start with the above the neck stuff and then work my way down from there. Because I think once you have that, it's a lot easier to work with the rest of the stuff. And the rest of the stuff are some pretty good tools for John Mateer.
Man, I just, how I felt about this kid coming into the season. I was super excited about him, and I'm looking at my list now, and because he was coming from Washington State and we saw what Cam Ward was able to produce at Washington State, I say, you know what? I'm gonna put him down a little bit further on my list, but I got my arrow up next to it with the understanding is I wanted to make him force his way up on the list. But it has the asterisks by like, man, like I really like this dude. And you talked about your notes. And the first note I have here is he's playing his way into the Heisman talk.
Mm.
And because I think he is going to be one of the well, there we go, right on cue. Look at Stryker. I appreciate you there, Stryker.
How is he tied with Carson Beck? If you're listening, Carson Beck, John Mateer, Garrett Nussmeier, all at plus 1,000 to win the Heisman. So answer me why he's tied with Carson Beck, and then tell me why John Mateer is the guy.
Are you asking me or Stryker?
You, Strikers refuse to talk on the podcast for some reason.
Well, we got to give Carson Beck his just due. He's played well, and you gotta show him some love. He's played well, and he seems to have command right now of this Miami offense, and he looks like he's totally in charge. Versus at Georgia, there were times where he looked afraid of making a mistake.
Yeah,
And so, and I don't know if that's maturity or just feeling like you're the guy, right? And not having someone look over your shoulder like they did at Georgia. But I think from the big thing about the Heisman race, you talk about what's your Heisman moment. And it's still very early in the season, and both of these guys could go on and have those Heisman moments. But it's just the excitement that John Mateer plays with that, that catches your eye, that's going to catch the viewing public's eye and the Heisman voters' eye. The other note I did put down, because you see there against Illinois State, he threw a pick. Against Michigan, he threw a pick. With all that said, you got to live and die with his hero ball.
right.
And you got to live and die with it. And he's the guy that you truly mean it when you say you have to live and die with it, because you don't want to take his stinger away. You don't want to take the way he plays the game of football. If you start making him feel like being cautious, then it's going to take away that oomph that he has. And that's why I said, and I would want to confirm this by going back looking in my eval, but that's where I said he reminded me of Bo Nix. And we saw some of Bo Nix' hero ball, if you will, in week 1 against that Titans defense, where he was responsible for, I think, 3 turnovers in the game. And both of those interceptions were passes that he could have not made, or they could have been better passes. But man, this dude here is exciting. And the first week was a little lesser opponent, and then this week, to do it against Michigan, we got to pay attention. Got to pay attention.
The interception against Michigan was just an overthrow, an intermediate route, I think a little seam windbreaker. The one in Illinois State, he forced the ball into coverage. But I want to clarify something. You mentioned hero ball. I feel like Bo Nix as well and Mateer, their hero balls were a little different than what we talked about last year with Shador and Cam, and that they just necessarily weren't playing on time. They were just trying to do too much behind the line of scrimmage instead of getting the ball to the check down. This feels different with Mateer because he's going to throw the ball into double and triple coverage because he thinks his arm can fit it in the window. But he's a little bit better at playing on time, it feels like, at this point in the process than those quarterbacks were a year ago.
Yeah, and I think a lot of Cam's not playing on time, and we saw some of this against, and we'll talk about it later, but we saw some of this in week 1. It's just him just being cavalier in the pocket. If there's no pressure, I'm not in a rush.
Right.
Right. And he may be looking for that third window to throw to. And like I said, we'll talk about it later. But hey, John Mateer, if you see this, or if anybody wants to clip it and send it to him, you got 2 fans over here with the First Pick podcast, man. Keep doing your thing.
Yeah, with the First Pick Player of the Week. I'll go ahead and give it to him.
Okay.
How about that? He was good, man. He was fun.
We need to come up with a graphic for that with the First Pick Player of the Week.
I'll do that. I got nothing else going on.
Real quick, I just don't.
There he is.
So I heard a lot of things about hero ball flashiness, but I just wanted to play a quick clip about someone else gave some other words that I think would fit John Mateer. So here's a quick clip on how to describe John Mateer.
Yeah, the kids call it aura. That's what they call it now.
There it is.
There it is.
That was
I like
Ran.
what you doing over there, man.
I'm assuming you back in the summer, but you were dressed up like it was cold out.
It might have been, I don't know. Or it might have just been cold in my house.
He is, aura is the word that the kids use that I don't understand, but it makes sense when you use it in that context. Thank you, that striker. Yeah, John Mateer. That was fun, man. Because, sometimes you watch guys and you're just like, man, are we even trying? With John Mateer, you're like, I can't wait to see what he does next. Man, that was fun. And by the way, Bryce Underwood is going to be a good player, and he looked like a freshman out there, but there are some reasons for optimism there in Michigan. But John Mateer stole the show. So congratulations to them. Congratulations to Venables and Jim Nagy and all those guys at Oklahoma. All right, next up,
Lake Dawson. Don't forget my man, Lake Dawson.
Lake Dawson. I didn't know he was there. Absolutely. And next up at the quarterback position, and we'll circle back and talk about another Oklahoma player later in the show and a Michigan player, as it turns out. But we're going to go with our fourth quarterback for our conversations here on Young Fellow Wednesdays. Man, I'm pretty good at my job, Rand. Luke Altmyer played in Durham against the Duke Blue Devils. He is the Illinois quarterback, of course. Started at Ole Miss, has been in Illinois this third season now. I think he's a Starkville, Mississippi kid, where he grew up. He is unofficially 6'1". He may be officially 6'1". I'll double check. Maybe a little shorter. So he's not a big quarterback, but really good last season on that Illinois team. And throws accurately, can play out of structure without setting his feet. He's pretty sharp on the short and intermediate throws in the middle of the field. We talk a lot of times during the draft process about whether a player or quarterback is interested in throwing the ball between the numbers or not. That was a huge knock on Michael Penix Jr. coming out. Michael Penix Jr., I think, is going to be fine, but just something to keep in mind here. But one of the things that stuck out to me, Rand, is that we talk about the quality of misses. Sometimes the misfires don't make sense, and you wonder if it's just an accuracy issue. Is it a focus in the moment issue? Because you shouldn't. It's one thing to miss a 40-yard bomb, and something else to miss on short and intermediate routes when you also show the ability to be incredibly precise on those routes as well. I think he's a tough player. I think he makes a lot of good decisions with the ball. He's played a ton of football. What'd you think about what we saw from Luke Altmyer in a game that I thought might be closer against the Duke Blue Devils?
Yeah. You mentioned it. He's a fifth-year senior. So he's a guy that, he played at Ole Miss. He's been playing at Illinois since he got there. And I think from a career standpoint, he has progressed every season, right? Since he got to college, from Ole Miss to current day at Illinois, I think he's progressed. I think the big thing for him is he doesn't have a big arm. And the name of his game is the short to intermediate passing and his accuracy. But to your point in asking about, those crossing routes underneath where it doesn't make sense with the misfire, and you saw this in some games, in some of these college games and these NFL games, a lot of times these receivers aren't reading the coverage properly, right? So they're running through the zone when they should sit down. And the quarterback is anticipating them sitting down, and the quarterback's got all these things flying across their face, right? Because a lot of times, and you're saying he's 6'1", he's not going to see the field cleanly. He's seeing helmets, and that's his way of anticipating. And so feeling like your guy's going to sit down in a spot because you see the way the coverage drops. So you're just anticipating him sitting down, and you're going there, and then your receiver's running through the zone. And so sometimes those miscues happen. Isn't always on the quarterback. Sometimes it's on the receiver, the pass catcher, whatever you want to call it, not reading the coverage properly and making the route adjustment.
That's an important note, and thank you for making that. He's a verified 6 feet and 3/4, so he's just a shade under 6'1". Luke Altmyer has 214.
Or even more important for him is, and I remember talking to a shorter quarterback, friend of mine, and he was like, "Hey man, like I didn't see full bodies when I played." He said, "I just saw helmets." And so he was like, and I knew if they were, he was like, of course I knew my concepts. I knew where guys were, I knew coverages. He was like, but because I'm, 6 feet and my linemen were all bigger than me, the defensive linemen, the guys got their hands up. He said, I only saw helmets. So maybe sometimes that's what these guys are seeing.
Right.
Because if you go back and you look at any clip of Drew Brees when he was in New Orleans, it was almost like he was looking at the bottom of his face.
That's right.
Because he was here, and then he would climb the pocket to be able to, get the ball out.
Like in them old school spy movies where you had the little mirror to look around the corner. He had like the mirror underneath his helmet so he could see over the line. And but I tell you what, he was dealing, and he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer for a reason. One of the other things I made note of talking about Altmyer in this Duke game in particular, he trusts his wide receivers. So if they're where they're supposed to be, to your point earlier about maybe they're not always there in the short and intermediate routes, but down the field, he's going to put the ball out there and let them go make plays. And you want some of that trust when you're talking about quarterbacks at the next level because the coverage gets better, people get faster, the windows get smaller. So I liked a lot of what I saw with Altmyer. I know you, like your predecessor, don't love my comps, but this is the name that came to mind in part because of the size and in part because physically he's not going to look like Anthony Richardson walking off the bus. I got some Ian Book vibes. I've had worse comps.
Nah, because
I haven't had worse comps.
no, I didn't mean it like that. What I'm saying is because there was at one point when Ian Book was at Notre Dame, there was a lot of love for him leading up to the process.
Yeah.
And then once the process hit, it kind of everything leveled out. And so I'm trying to look at it through that lens. And I think I would have to go back and look at my Ian Book notes on my hard drive to compute there. So we may talk about that one next show.
All right, fair enough. There's Drew looking over in between his face mask, not over.
Hey man, Stryker is on his job today.
That's right. There it is. And you know what? Both those grabs we just saw, completions and probably touchdowns. So it can happen. And worth noting, Cam Ward was verified 6'1" and change. Caleb Williams 6'1" and change. Now Cam, you could argue outplayed Caleb, and we can talk about that later. But the point is, you can be a shorter quotation marks quarterback and still get it done. But Luke Altmyer feels like a guy that's going to be a guy as a backup that you can trust if you need him to play a handful of games at some point down the road in his career. All right, that was fun. All right, Stryker, you want to take another break here, and we'll come back and talk about some of our Spotlight Young Fellow Wednesday non-quarterbacks from week 2?
Yeah, we can do that.
All right, let's do it. We'll be back right after this.
Novocaine is now streaming on Paramount Plus.
I love this.
It's wildly entertaining and an absolute blast.
I'm in.
Novocaine, rated R, now streaming on Paramount Plus.
All right, Ran, let's go back to Oklahoma. Norman. Talk about Deion Burks, wide receiver. Verified 5'9.5", 182. Do you care that he has 29-inch arms?
Nah.
Okay, because sometimes people got really upset with Jahdae Bear in the first-round pick of the Broncos, the nickelback cornerback safety, who had 29-inch arms.
I mean, the guy's 5'9". What do you want him to have? 35s?
You know what? Our guy Willie Lampkin has 34-inch arms, 5'10", 285, center/guard. And I used to always say about Willie, if he were 6'4", his arms would be 38 inches. So let's call a spade a spade. That dude is balling. But right, I agree. I just asked you because sometimes we get caught up on the numbers. I don't care because Deion Burks, who we talked about over the summer, and I liked him I had a day 3-ish grade on him over the summer. He balled out against Michigan. He was a lot of fun. Even though he's 5'9", he played 70% of the snaps out wide, and then 30% in the slot. 13 targets, 7 catches for 101 yards. And 1 touchdown, didn't have any drops. And by the way, last year in a truncated season where he was targeted 44 times, only had 1 drop last year as well. So he can catch the ball, man. Lateral juice to get to the edge on that touch pass into round that we saw them run. Hands catcher, can put the cornerback in a blender on a stutter go. When he's the explosive coming out of that stutter go. And those are the things that all translate to the next level, because if you are a jitterbug against this type of Big Ten SEC talent when they have those games, that stuff translates. And then the good hands, I think he's a real good route runner. And the other thing, doesn't shy away from contact. And even though he's not that big physically, I thought he played bigger than his listed size. And you want my comp now, or you want to talk first, and I'll give you my comp. So
Eric, give us your comp.
I saw a little Zay Flowers in him.
Say that again?
I saw a little Zay Flowers in him.
No.
All right. You didn't even hesitate on that one. Zay is too rich?
I think it's a little too rich. I was thinking, and it's just a thought. So to our listeners,
I won't hold you to it.
Don't. But I was thinking like Tutu Atwell.
Oh gosh. All right, let's meet halfway. How about that? Let's start there.
So how he performed versus Michigan is how we've been expecting him to perform since
Fair.
his days at Purdue. And because you saw all these flashes and everything that you mentioned, you saw him in flashes. And the big thing for him is just being out there on the field.
Right.
You have to be able to stay out there on the field and be durable. I don't think there's anybody that can say this kid can't play, but he's going to be one of those guys that when the process starts to take shape, is can his body, can his frame hold up at the next level? See, to me, when we're talking about smaller guys, I lean to give them the benefit of the doubt if they've never been hurt before.
Yep. That's a good
Because
one.
we tend to throw that on these guys in this process. Oh, he's little. He's going to get hurt at the next level. Well, he's played against all these same people before,
Mhm.
and he's never been hurt. But this guy has. And so it leads you to believe that's where, to me, now you have the right to question the durability. And so I don't think this kid is short on talent and ability. It's just, to me, it's going to always be, can he be durable? These first two performances, I think week one, he had 7 catches for 88 yards, whatever it was. And then this week, another 7 catches, 101 yards. Let's see if you can keep stacking these type performances. You don't have to have 100 yards, but more importantly, like, can we get a play from you every game? And more important than making a play every game, are you going to be there every game?
Yeah.
To me, that's the big question.
And that's a great point. And I do get caught up. I get so excited watching these guys because I was like you over the summer. I wanted to see more. And then to your previous point, he had a thigh contusion in the opener against Tennessee on September 21st last season, missed 5 games, had a concussion against Missouri in early November and missed the final 2 regular season games. So he wasn't on the field for 7 of those games last season for Oklahoma. But if he's healthy and he's this dynamic, and those are 2 big ifs, then that changes the conversation because, Rick used to say it all the time. If a player's injured, he typically has an injury history. And he wasn't talking about 184 pounds. He was talking about Amarius Mims coming out, who said, he had the ankle injury in the South Carolina game, if I recall correctly. And he just got unlucky. But he struggled with injuries last year. And just something, I know some of it's unlucky, but do you put that on a kid if he's banged up in college? There's no reason to think he's going to suddenly be the picture of health at the next level?
Yeah, I mean, because that's what the history shows.
Right. Okay.
But that's why, to what I said earlier, when we're talking about these smaller guys, if they've never been hurt,
Right.
then we can't forecast just because the player is small that they're going to be hurt. It's one of those deals where, hurt guys stay hurt. It's kind of what it is. Whether you're unlucky or because even the quote unquote unlucky plays of guys being rolled up on, like typically your body is in a position where you're going to be affected if you get rolled up on. And I'm thinking about an offensive lineman now. If you're an offensive lineman and you're playing with straight legs and then people come from behind you, you're going to get caught in an awkward position.
Right.
Versus if you're playing with your knees bent, or you're playing with knee bend, you got more of an opportunity to survive it. So to Rick's point, hurt people stay hurt. And I'm not one to forecast these guys are going to get hurt just because they're quote unquote, below the line in terms of size.
All right. So former GMs in the league discriminate against people who have an injury history is what I'm hearing. File your claims.
Not just former, current and future GMs will discriminate against guys with injury histories.
And by the way, it's easy for me to call you guys out because I ain't getting fired if if Amarius Mims doesn't play well. You're making an investment bigger than us.
Just trust me, your lead scout, whether it's your assistant GM, VP of player personnel, college director, when you're in those draft meetings, and you start talking about the medical, somebody is holding that little red dot sticker
Just
that
wait.
you're going to put, because you have a little red dot and then you have the big red dot. And the big red dot means it's continual. And so you would slap with that red dot, you getting knocked a little bit.
I get it, and I understand that. My issue is that I watch these guys play, and they're so much fun at times that you try to have blinders on, and obviously you can't do that. And I'm going to forget his name. cornerback out of Georgia Tech who was drafted by the Titans before you got there.
You mean out of Virginia Tech?
Virginia Tech. What'd I say?
Yeah, you said Georgia Tech.
Oh, yeah, Virginia Tech.
Caleb Farley.
Caleb Farley. Man, I loved his tape. And I remember
Yeah,
talking
me
to a
too.
scout for another team that thought he was going to be had a chance to be special. But even unlike ACLs, a back injury at age 22, forget about age 55, those things typically don't get better. And I think that was unfortunately for him, his downfall in the league. He just couldn't stay healthy. And those are the things that obviously you guys are paying attention to and why he slipped in the draft. But, when you draft guys on hope, I don't know who said it, but hope ain't a plan.
No, hope is just an emotion. It's a strong emotion, but an emotion nonetheless.
What did the HQ security guard tell you?
Oh, it's all about the energy you bring.
It's all about the energy. I want to make a list. Hope is just an emotion, and it's all about the energy you bring. All right, let's talk about your guy. Of course, you went with the running back. Justice Haynes played for Michigan, and obviously in that game we're talking about here. I didn't get a chance to watch Justice because you and Stryker conspired to put this name in here without telling me. So you tell me, as the godfather of running backs, what you saw in Michigan's Justice Haynes, not just last week, but you said he had a good week in week 1 as well.
Yeah, so he transferred from Alabama where he split time in their crowded backfield, and he transfers to Michigan and enters the season in a relative 1A 1B type of role, but he is outsnapped the other runner. And week 1 against New Mexico, he has 16 carries, a $159 and 3 touchdowns, which caught my eye. And I was like, you know what? Let me wait a little bit and see how he performs against Oklahoma. Then he bounces back against Oklahoma with 19 carries, 125 yards, and a touchdown. On the season, he's got explosive runs of 56 yards, 59 yards, and 75 yards. And so he's a guy, he was a big 5-star recruit coming out, and actually was a 5-star recruit. I think he was like a dual threat on offense and defense. Could have went to probably any school of his choice on the defensive side of the ball. And here's one for you, being a former Steelers fan. He is the son of Veron Haynes.
Hey, yeah,
Former
that I
Steelers-
didn't know.
Yeah,
I'm a
former
current Steelers
running
fan,
back.
by the way.
Yeah, so he's Veron's baby boy.
Nice.
And the big thing for Justice is him having the ability to show that he could carry the load. He is a guy that needs volume touches. He needs the touches to get going, to get rolling, and he'll wear you down. He's a tough physical runner, has little subtleties in space in terms of making you miss. He's not going to juke you out of your shoes or give you the bip as I want to call it. But he has the subtle moves about him. Here's a weird stat, right? So on the season, first of all, he's 4th in FBS in rushing, right? He's 4th in the nation in rushing. He's averaging 8.1 yards a carry. But here's a weird stat. I mentioned those explosive runs, 56, 59, 75. It's because of that he's averaging 8.1. But if you remove those 3 runs, he's only averaging 2.9 yards a carry. And to me, that says more about the Michigan O-line than it does about him, because there's the runner that's behind him is also averaging probably right at 3 yards a carry on the season. So Justice right now, he's a true junior because he played as a true freshman at Alabama sparingly, but he played. But he's a true junior. He's going to be draft eligible, and if he keeps up at his pace, he's a guy that we're going to be talking about next spring. So just wanted to shine a light, from my side, and I am biased towards running backs. And this segment was non-quarterbacks. There was a quarterback I wanted to put here, but we could talk about him next week. We'll
Give
talk
full
about,
tease. Who you thinking about?
and because I'm looking at my list now of, I'll say his name first. Sawyer Robinson, quarterback there.
Oh
And you were higher on him than I was, but he is playing lights out right now.
yes, sir.
He's playing lights out right now. So he was a guy that was my first choice, but understanding the assignment. And like I said, Justice, he made my highlight list in terms of when I see guys, because I check even if I can't watch the game, I check all the box scores, and then it makes me go back and watch the game.
Right.
And so, like I said at the beginning, he's a guy that 159 week 1 caught my eye, and I was like, let me wait. And then for him to go back and put 125 up against a good Oklahoma defense, I was like, yeah, let me go ahead and show Justice some love. So shout out to you, Justice. Keep playing. You made the right decision for you in getting the opportunity to go to Michigan so you can carry the load and show everyone what you're made of. And so far, so good. So
A couple things. We'll talk about Sawyer Robinson next week. We'll put him on the list. We got a request for Taylon Green out of Arkansas, so we'll have him on the list at some point soon. And there's another quarterback that was mentioned as well. So I watched Sawyer. We talked about it over the summer, but I watched week 1 against Auburn. I heard SMU was even better, so I'm going to go back and watch that today or tomorrow. Our buddy Lee J. Doosbull was texting me this morning about Sawyer dealing against SMU. So I'm excited to see that. And then in terms of while you were talking about Justice, I was watching some of his runs against Oklahoma, and the first run to start the third quarter was that 75-yarder where he just one cut and outran everyone to the end zone. All the other ones leading up to that were the 2 yards in a cloud of dust, where he does feel like a volume runner, but he's not getting tackled in the backfield. He's falling forward, even if the offensive line isn't doing necessarily what you're hoping they're doing when you drew the play up. So that was a good call. And Justice Haynes, I did not know he was Veron's son. Former Georgia Bulldog Veron Haynes, big part of the Steelers teams in mid-2000s, back when BMAC was there. Nice. Second round, day 3 pick, I believe, of the Steelers.
yeah.
Did you know Veron?
Yeah.
Roland?
Ron is an illustrious member of the greatest fraternity on earth, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. Blue Phi to all the bros. But he is my frat brother, and we crossed paths in Atlanta. His last stop was with the Falcons when I was
okay.
there.
Nice. I thought you were going to tell me he's a Florida guy. Usually you lead with that, so he's not from Florida if you didn't say it already.
No, I think he's from New York, and I think he may have went to Western Kentucky first and then transferred to Georgia for his last few years.
Okay. All right. Let's see if you're right here. He is – where's Veron from? He went to Sandy Springs High School in Georgia. We'll figure out where he grew up later. All right. Here we go. Let's turn the spotlight to some NFL rookies from week 1. And remember, just leave us a 5-star review, Apple Podcast, Spotify. Leave us some names of guys you want us to talk about, and we will get to them. Either college or NFL now that we're talking about it. Because first up, Cameron Ward as he goes by now. And we've talked a little bit earlier in the show about the reasons for optimism, the progress he made from.
All right, Roy, real quick before we move on. Rand's already asking me to clip stuff, and we're still going here. I just want to shout that out. Usually he'll wait till the show's over, but he's dialed in.
You know what, Striker? You're doing such a great job today. He feels like he can put more on your plate. So that's on you. When you start doing too much and people expect more of you.
Striker's crushing it today.
You're gonna have to wait till the show's over, Ram. But we'll get there.
You made Striker mad. I've never seen Striker mad before. That's as mad as I've seen him. And he's a Drew Aller fan. All right.
Moving on.
Drew Aller catching strays. He's played well. We'll get to Drew. He'll be on our list too soon, no doubt, once the Penn State decides to play somebody. All right. Back to Cameron Ward. Obviously, the last 2 years from Washington State to Miami, he's gotten better. And I'll read you a stat line from his debut with the Titans in Denver, probably one of the toughest places to play, in part because of where you are, the elevation, but also that defense is legit. 34 dropbacks, 12 of 28 for 112 yards. And that, to me, is not something you get excited about. Didn't turn the ball over. He had the 4th down fumble at the end of the game. I'm not counting that. He was sacked 6 times. And another note I'll make, pressured on 53% of his dropbacks, which was worse in week 1, the most pressure any quarterback faced in week 1. All that said, I came away from watching this tape extremely excited with what I saw. Obviously, the arm strength's there. He played on time a lot more efficiently than we had seen him in the past. Those are questions we had on him. You and I talked about this. He was getting after, I think it was Alec Ayuminor late in the game. He wanted to run a little wrap in. He kept the route straight and didn't get around the second-level defender for an anticipation throw. He came back and made some more anticipation throws. Had a couple drops that were great throws that his receivers need to make. Saw the arm strength at all 3 levels. And he did do the occasional hero ball, but without consequence in this game. Took the big sacks late in the game, back-to-back sacks that got him out of field goal range. That can't happen. But these are learning experiences. All told, I was way more excited than I thought I was going to be when I saw the stat line before going back and watching these throws.
Yeah, we watched this game from the green room, preparing for the show on Sunday night, and he made NFL throws, big time NFL throws, and he made it look easy.
Mhm.
And that's why, like you said, I agree with you. Despite the stat line, I think Titans fans have a lot to be encouraged about. Now, the next step is improving the weaponry around him, right? I think you still need to continue to add playmakers around him and give him guys that are going to just flat out make plays. That's just the truth of the matter. The 6 sacks, I think some could have been, put on him. And that's in terms of, like you talked about, playing on time and just understanding situational football to get a turnover, that deep into opponent's territory and to have back-to-back sacks where you lose 30 yards. Like, rookie or not, like, that's inexcusable. You got to be able to come away with 3 points, and you ended up being the difference of the game almost, because you said you didn't count the fumble, that late touchdown that really put, Denver up. The complexity of the game has changed if those 3 points are on the board for
Yep, fair enough.
for Tennessee. So, and these are all things that I know he's going to learn from. I'm pretty sure he knew it coming off the field. And the other thing too, man, he was unflappable. Like, he didn't look out of sorts at all. The fact that, you talked about whether it was, the Stanford kid, the receiver. I can't say his name, so I'm gonna call him the Stanford kid, number 5.
By the way, let me tell you, I was wrong. I looked it up. It was Kamir
It was
DK,
DK.
the Florida
Yeah.
kid. Yeah.
And because that's where I was going. I was like, whether it was him or where it was Kamir DK, like, but it's to that point of what if my memory is serving me correct, that was one where he wanted him to sit down and not keep running through. If I could be totally wrong, but the fact that he did not shy away from going after guys, like,
Right.
that's leadership. That's leadership, and that's holding guys accountable. And when you are able as a quarterback to start holding those guys accountable, they look at you different because they understand what the expectation is, because they understand you're expecting that out of yourself. And so he has another tough test coming in with this Rams defense. And, I think that it's going to be another good game because I think the Titans defense, the way they're built, they're going to have to hold the team down until this offense gets going. But a lot to be encouraged for he's still Cam Ward to me. So Cam Ward, a lot to be encouraged for.
And look, we talk about squinters all the time. No squinting necessary. Stat line aside, you look at that and you go, okay, that's because look, I will be the first to admit I've made a ton of excuses for Bryce Young and Caleb Williams in the NFL because of what I thought they were going to become and, preaching patience and all that. Bro, Cam Ward was dealing. Now, again, 12 28, 6 sacks. That doesn't look great on paper, but if you watched him play in the way with which he played and the confidence with which he played, we saw at times Bryce Young not have that confidence, and Caleb even last year not playing with that confidence. And I think for those reasons, I would be incredibly encouraged. By the way, your guy Gunnar Helm had a huge catch early in that game. Ian Manor made some plays. I think DK is obviously going to get better. He can run away from people. They have Calvin Ridley. So there are reasons for optimism. I just said that.
Fair.
All right. Let's talk about some other rookies, non-quarterbacks. So we only had one quarterback start this week. And we'll go with, I think you put this guy on here. If not, I watched him as well, and I loved him. First-round pick of the Buccaneers, Emeka Egbuka. I'll just go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm going to let you go first.
You know what? I'm going to start with a negative. I thought he could have blocked a little bit better in the run game. That's it, though. He was fine, and I think he would probably tell you he could probably get after a little bit more because we know he can do that as well. But that's just me. When you give someone an A++, you want to make a little note at the bottom. Oh, by the way, if you're going to work on stuff, work on this. 6 targets, 4 catches, 67 yards, 0 drops. No surprise there. Play mostly in the slide to some out wide stuff. Again, big catch radius, big touchdown catch. Look like a 10-year veteran who can still run a 4.4. I'll just leave it at that.
Listen, you hit it all. I won't go any further. I will just add this part. He is going to be the reason that they're going to be able to move on from Chris Godwin because he's a clone of Chris Godwin. And we talk about Mike Evans and the ridiculous stat line he has with the consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. Mike Evans is what he is who he is. He's that guy. He's their clear-cut number one. But I think if you talk to most people within the Bucs organization, they will tell you that Chris Godwin and the role Chris Godwin plays is equally as important
Right.
as what Mike Evans does, because he does a lot of the dirty work. He plays all three positions. He's assertive in the run game. They trust him to insert him in the C gap, B gap on those run fits to help block the slot, making plays, moving the chains. And this is exactly what Emeka does. And so this is going to give them their young Chris Godwin. And unfortunately, Chris Godwin had been able to stay healthy. And we talked about, what health can do. But man, like, he can do everything this kid can. And I'm just excited to see him grow as a pro. You're going to look up here in a couple years, and he's going to be one of the more consistent. Like, I won't necessarily go out of the window and say elite right now, but maybe is Premier below elite?
Maybe
Or
like
they-
a hair. No, a hair below. Like, he's not Justin Jefferson tomorrow.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. He's not in that Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, but that next tier of guys, he'll be a guy that when you look up, you'd rather have him on your team than some of these big name players that people talk about.
That's right. And I just rewatched his second touchdown there late in the fourth quarter to put them ahead. It was his cover 3, and he had outside leverage. He set up the cornerback and just ran that little skinny post, and Baker put it right on him. And I think we, and by we, I mean me, get caught up in the idea that he is not Garrett Wilson in space in terms of speed. He can run. He's just big. Like, he can get up on toes and turn people around, and that's exactly what he did on that touchdown. So a lot of reasons for optimism. We heard Jason Licht say it during the pre-draft process. They had a top 10 grade on him, and they would have taken him earlier had they had that opportunity. And I think it's going to be the right decision. All right. Love it. Next up. Yeah, that was your guy. Low-hanging fruit, taking a first-round pick. I'm going all the way to the 7th round, pick 251. Jacory Croskey-Merritt. He goes by Bill, which I love that name. You don't see a lot of young folks named Bill these days. I love it. Bill Croskey-Merritt. Played at Arizona last year for a game. Prior to that, he was in New Mexico. And there's an eligibility issue last year is why he couldn't play any more than that. It wasn't an injury issue. But I wrote in my notes at the time when watching him last fall and then seeing him at the Senior Bowl, the Shrine Bowl, he had the best jump cut in that draft class after Ashton Genty, I thought. And we saw that electricity translate to that week 1 game against the Giants defense. It's not bad. You talked about them a lot during the offseason, how they're going to be probably have to carry this Giants team for a little bit. And that game was close for a minute, but Bill Croskey-Merritt, 10 rushes, 82 yards, a touchdown, ripped off a 42-yarder. So, he can win behind the line of scrimmage. He can make guys miss in small space. And then once he gets in the open field, good luck to you catching them. Did you get a chance to watch Croskey-Merritt?
Yeah, and the first of all, I want to say shout out to GM Adam Peters. Worked with AP for a very long time, and this is a AP guy. And again, I wasn't in that draft room. I don't know. These are the late round gems that Adam Peters is able to find because he understands what fits their scheme. And this guy is the perfect scheme fit for Cliff Kingsbury offense, right? You talk about the jump cut. It's being decisive as a runner in this offense because you have the threat of the quarterback being able to pull the ball and run. It freezes the second level defenders, right? And it's going to create these natural gaps and allow the lineman that's coming off of, the double team, the combo, to get up to the second level. And you need running backs that are going to be decisive, put their foot in the ground, and just get downhill and attack. And so this is how this kid runs. And then you talked about just having that jump cut to where if a move is need to be made, he can put his foot in the ground, jump cut laterally, and then put that next foot in the ground and then accelerate forward. And you saw that on his touchdown run.
Yep.
Because that's exactly what he did, bounce it around the right side and win and score. And so these are the late round gems that you have, especially at the running back position, that you have to be able to find. And Adam Peters has shown the ability to do that at every place that he's been. So good call on this kid. and great job by the Commanders in finding him.
Yeah, so I actually wrote about Croskey-Merritt last week before the season opener, so I'm glad he hit. Makes me look less dumb. A couple things. I thought sometimes you see smaller backs, quotation marks. He's not small, but he's not Derrick Henry. He's not afraid to run between the tackles. He runs with good contact balance. He will run through arm tackles. He follows his blocks. He's patient. All the things that you want in your running backs. And he's a late 7th-round pick, so he's going to draw some comparisons at least to where he was drafted to Isaiah Pacheco. Came out in 2022 and is late 7th rounder. I think Croskey-Merritt's a better football player, a better running back than Pacheco coming out. And Pacheco's certainly a very good football player. What do you think about that?
Well, I think Pacheco, I think if we're talking about it right now, I think Pacheco is the better football player.
Okay.
I think Bill is a better athlete, and I think he has more juice
Okay.
than Pacheco. Pacheco is just a violent, rough, and rugged runner.
All right.
And it looks funky, it's herky jerky. And whereas Croskey-Merritt is just more smooth and explosive. And so that to me is the difference.
I think Nate Burles described Isaiah Pacheco once as like a little kid running in brand new church shoes. I think that was Nate that said that. That is the most apt description I've ever heard of how Pacheco plays. And that's exactly right. But I think that's a good way to put it. They're two different types of runners, obviously, but both fun. And both 7th-round picks. Congratulations to them. All right, next up, this is one of your guys. You love some off-ball linebackers. Early 2nd-round pick of the Browns, Carson Schwesinger, started on day one for Cleveland, drafted out of UCLA. I did not get a chance to watch him, but I watched his teammate, and I'll talk about him as a follow-up. But tell me what you thought of Carson Schwesinger on a defense that gave the Bengals some trouble.
Yeah, I mean, let's start with this. And we could shout out our friend Andrew Berry and his staff. You could have went with 3 Browns rookies in this segment. And Carson Schwesinger, because I say this, when they took him, and especially with where they drafted him so early in the 2nd round, when they had, I thought at the time, other needs, I questioned the pick. And I'm like, well, why would they take him so high? And then we later found out a month or two later that JOK was going to miss the season.
Right.
And so now you have, and it was going to be a hard deal to try to replace JOK, but then you go and you draft this kid who is just instinctive, and he is a football player. He is always around the ball. I believe he had 8 tackles, a tackle for loss. I think he even had a pass breakup. This guy is going to, barring health, he is going to lead this team in tackles, and he will easily cross over 120 tackles on the season. And I'll say this, and I may be stealing our thunder for next week, but him and Will Johnson will be the 2 finalists for Defensive Rookie of the Year. I'm calling it.
So I wrote about 5 rookies that I was impressed with from week 1 and whether they can sustain it. I've written about this the last few years. Will Johnson made the list. I sent you the clip of him last night of what he did to Chris Olave, and you get arrested for doing that if you do that outside the football field. That was something else. My guy.
I had a director of pro in the league. I texted him and I said, "Have you watched Will Johnson?" And this was before week 1. And if so, what are your thoughts? And he texted me back and he said, "This guy already plays like an 8-year vet."
And you know what happened, Ran? And I wrote about this. This is the words I use. Me, overthought it. He was the 1st-round pick. He got hurt, had the turf toe, whatever he had last year in Michigan. He was the #1 player on my big board coming into last season. And cornerbacks usually aren't that high. Got hurt. There was murmurs in the folks you talked to that he's going to run a 4.7, so he never ran the pre-draft process. Then Sterling Thomas goes down. Sean Murphy-Bunting goes down in Arizona. And Will Johnson might have won the job anyway because he was balling out in training camp. He was balling out in preseason. He balled out in week 1. Don't overthink it.
So, Striker, all that means is next year for draft stuff, we're getting a more stubborn Ryan Wilson.
Brian Branch should have been a 1st-round pick. Kyle Hamilton should have been not
Drew Aller.
Oh, God, Drew Aller. Striker interrupted me to mention Drew Aller's name. I'm on my soapbox here talking about don't think about these numbers and just take good football players. And Striker's talking about Drew Aller. All right. I'm glad you mentioned Will Johnson because I was going to mention him at the end. So that's good to know. He had a great game, 3 PBUs in that game against New Orleans. One of the PBUs is what he did to Chris Olave. Had another one in the end zone and one on the first pass play of the game. And he looked, like you said, a 10-year vet. My other guy I wanted to mention quickly for Cleveland, Harold Fannin Jr. That was one of the guys you were probably interested in mentioning in addition to Dylan Sampson, the running back who had a big day. He played a lot of inline. They lined him at fullback. He took a wildcat snap, and he did a lot of things in terms of the way he played running routes that we saw at Bowling Green, and that he is a really good athlete. He can create separation. He has good movement skills, ran a little return route that created separation against a safety in Jordan Battle. One of the things I got to – and look, I will give him credit, man. He was blocking his ass off, like in-line blocking against DE types. And I was like, okay, because I didn't see as much of that at Bowling Green, in part because they had him in the slot sometimes. But I got to chuckle a couple times, at least 2 running plays. I think one he was a fullback, one he was in line. He didn't know what he was supposed to be doing. He ran the wrong way. And it happens. But the reason they kept putting him out there because they knew what he could do. They have 3 tight ends on this roster, and Njoku, Fannin, and Blake Whitehurst, I think his name is. He's the number 3, I believe. But the point is, they're going to be playing a lot of 12, and he's going to be a big part of it.
Yeah, I mean, and this offense requires a lot of 12, right? And now you have, your movable chess piece. And for the record, I didn't know we could say ass on this show, so you shouldn't open up those can of worms.
Well, given that, man, the way he was blocking, I had to give him his props. But yeah, so Harold was fun to watch. Good, he had a great week, man. And I got a good chuckle out of that. I got a couple more names here before we get out of here. Just I'm going to mention because I watch these guys or the story I wrote on CBSSports.com. You can go look that up if you want to. Armand Mimbu, I wanted to check him out because he went up against TJ Watt, 10-year vet. And I'm not going to blame you. Maybe I will blame you because I think you had I think you said he might be too short. He was 6'3" and change at the Senior Bowl. He got to 6'4" at the Combine. His arms were 33 5/8 at the Senior Bowl. They got to 34 at the Combine. So he hit
I didn't say anything about the measurables.
Oh, what was your issue with Armand?
I just saw the inconsistency of
okay.
the tape. So hey, listen, I'm glad to be wrong.
He had a wonderful afternoon. He had 10 pass pro reps against TJ Watt in particular. And he may have been responsible for a hold on one play. It wasn't a pass play where Justin Fields ran around the edge. Didn't get called. But you have to be extremely excited with what he was able to do. And he had some big boy re-anchors against TJ because TJ ain't messing around when he decides to bull rush. And I'll give him credit for a half pancake on the last play of the game, the one where Jalen Ramsey just dislodged the ball from Garrett Wilson. And, TJ was trying to make his way towards that side of the field. So Armand got him, though, put him on his back. The other thing, and I want to get your thoughts on this quickly. So they lost Elijah Tucker for the year, the Jets did, the right guard. They had to move Joe Tippmann from center to right guard. Joe Tippmann and Armand Mimbu look like they've been playing together for 5 years. And then you bring Josh Myers back to play center. How exciting is that when you have a rookie right tackle, a second-year left tackle? I think Tippmann's in his second or third year, moving from center to guard, playing right guard. And this appears to be working because they were running all over the Steelers, and Justin Fields had a good amount of time back there.
No, I mean, the fact for Tippmann to go from center to guard and you feel like you hadn't lost anything. Right? Now, the next big thing for the Jets is going to figure out, depending on how long he stays at this guard spot, is when they have to pay him. And which position has the highest value.
That's where your mind went right away.
Yeah, that's where my mind immediately goes. But it's always the more you can do, especially those interior guys. And you have an interior guy that can swing over, play both guard spots and center. If you have one that can do that, then you're golden.
All right. I think that's all we got. Did I miss anything?
No, sirski.
And I'm glad you mentioned Will Johnson because he was on my list of guys to talk about as well. So congratulations to him. Congratulations to all these guys we talked about. Good weeks for them. Next week, Sawyer Robertson's probably going to be in the list. Got some Taylor Green to talk about. We'll get some other guys together. This is a good start. So we'll be back Monday for, what are we calling that? Ran It Back Monday.
Ran It Back.
With JJ. And those are actually fun shows. Remember to leave 5-star reviews for players you want us to talk about, and we will do that. Thanks to Striker for producing. Thanks to my guy, Ryan. We'll see you guys in the next one.